Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Health with Natalie Cuomo. Today is a very special episode, you guys. This is my fourth episode of the podcast of season 5 on the new YouTube channel. So before we do anything at all, I need you to stop what you're doing, like, comment, and subscribe to the new YouTube channel. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, Google, make sure you leave a review. You know, you can write a little something, just leave those stars, anything that will really help the podcast. So here we are. This is our first, drum roll, you can't hear it, solo episode of the podcast. Well, that's very exciting. My guest is me. And I honestly, I couldn't be more excited about it. I've never felt so comfortable in this room, just being with myself. So yeah, I wish I could tell you that it was planned, but as we've had, I'd say probably maybe 110 episodes, maybe this is the 110th of this podcast. I'm sure if you guys are listening, you know that comedians are not the most reliable. So that is why I'm here and I'm reliable. This is it. This is me. I love doing a solo episode of my podcast. What I'd like to do is tell you guys a little bit about my week. It's fun because I feel like I actually have had a pumpkin-filled week. I know this is coming out in November. I know that you guys maybe are tired of Halloween. We're preparing for Thanksgiving. We're thinking about things that we're grateful for. Maybe the Christmas decorations are starting to come out. But I want to tell you a little bit about fall. So I'd say I went to this farm. It was called Happy Day Farm in Manalapan, New Jersey. And when I tell you that this was crazy, it really was. We go to this farm. I've been seeing it on Instagram. It's one of those viral farms that there's just thousands of videos of it because they have a pumpkin house. A pumpkin house is it's a farm made of it's a house made of pumpkins. I'm sorry. I'm just dreaming of the house. So I want you to close your eyes. If you're driving and listening, even better. Close your eyes and picture the pumpkin house. It's just a bunch of wooden panels in the shape of a house with pumpkins all over it. There's a pumpkin garage. There's all sorts of things. But attached to it is a fall festival. Here are a few of my favorite parts of the fall festival. Number 1, the pig races. There are pig races led by a man who actually was a stand-up comedian and retired to be a traveling pig race announcer. Now, while this might sound crazy to some, stand-up is a brutal industry. And this guy had pig puns up the wazoo. His pig puns per second were incredible. So we watched about 3 pig races. The same pig won every race. Each race was about 10 seconds long, and they were phenomenal. So that was great. And, I went with Dan, my fiance, and his parents. I was like, let's make this a family activity. This will be really fun. So we went, and I was really enjoying looking at all the animals until we saw a very cold Dalmatian. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen a cold Dalmatian, but it will rock you to your core. At this point in the podcast, I'm feeling insecure that I'm the only one talking because it's my first solo episode. But I'm thinking, you know what? I stream on Twitch. It's just me talking, and that's my bread and butter. So I'm going to plow through. I've never seen this in my life, you guys. Well, and we'll see. Do you guys like that it's just me here? Do you miss the guest? Do you like me? Validate me. Thank you. So the Dalmatian is freezing, okay? It's just waiting while the owner of the Dalmatian is leading pony rides for the disabled. And I know it's a lot to put together. I've never seen a Dalmatian try to take off its own harness. It was so sad. I started thinking, I can't look at this anymore. I have to walk away. And it reminded me of the dog in that you can see from my backyard, which I've talked about on my stream. I've talked about on my podcast. But I live on the 4th floor of an apartment building. And from my backyard, you can see other backyards, right? And you can see this one backyard keeps their dog out 24/7. And it's literally so heartbreaking. I watch it all the time. You're always seeing the dog. He wants to go in. But as I've said, I learned the biggest lesson of all. The best advice, which is mind your own motherfucking business. Because I was going nuts over this dog until I took a picture of it. And the owner saw me taking a picture of my neighbor's dog that they keep in the backyard and yelled at me. And it made me really paranoid. So that's where I learned one of the best advice I ever received, which is mind your own business. It's crazy when you think of all the mistreated animals out there. So that was the only downside, really, I'd say, of the festival. And I will remain saying, ever since I went to the mall in Edmonton, I've continued to not eat meat. So we did that, and I had a great time. We picked some sunflowers. The next day, Dan and I went to, I believe it's called the Great Jack-O-Lantern Blaze. This place is fucking crazy. So I think it was 2 episodes ago, I talked about how I was addicted to carving pumpkins. You think I'm addicted? You think I'm addicted to carving pumpkins? There were 7,000 plus jack-o'-lanterns, and it was so crazy. This place, you basically go in, you walk through a maze of jack-o'-lanterns. You walk in, they have it's crazy. I'd say the worst part of the experience is the children just everywhere, and the parents there's all these parents everywhere that are so fed up with their children. They're parents that are looking at other parents that have younger kids being like, just you wait, enjoy the time now. Like parents, like the rage in their eyes is terrifying. I'd say that was the worst part. But the jack-o'-lanterns were crazy. There was like jack-o'-lanterns like put together making like a New York City subway. There was a giant dragon made of jack-o'-lanterns. There was literally like foot traffic. Like everyone was stopped because people were taking pictures of like the Ferris wheel made out of pumpkins. It was one of the most amazing things ever. So highly recommend. I will say one of the disappointing things is that I wanted to believe that everything was made out of real pumpkin, but I think a significant amount was made out of styrofoam. So that kind of really humbled me and made me realize I wasn't the jack-o'-lantern carver that I thought I was. I really found it interesting that in those 2 experiences, I didn't even buy a single pumpkin, which I would say is improvement. So, here I am. I'm planning a wedding, right? My fiance and I were planning a wedding. We're both comedians. And I feel like I'm in this crazy situation where I want to invite comedians to my wedding, but I can't even get a comedian to show up to my fucking podcast. How am I going to get a comedian to commit to coming to my wedding? I mean, every episode, it's actually very impressive. So I don't know. I'm thinking it's going to be family. It's going to be family. It's because comedians, they're very self-centered folk, and we love them. I think that's how they get the job done. That's their creative process. But it's not fit for friendship or weddings. And yeah, I think that's, a story that speaking of Thanksgiving and Halloween, it kind of ties everything together. So I have like all these tattoos, and I think it surprises me. Like if I looked at my younger self, I would be like pretty freaked out about it, because as a kid, I was like terrified of people with tattoos and like masks and Halloween. And I actually I wouldn't go to school on Halloween. I was really scared. Like October, the whole month was a tragedy for me. It was the worst month of the year. I was just very upset because I thought people didn't have empathy if they were wearing face paint or a mask. And my dad has a theory that the reason I'm afraid of, well, okay, I'm not still, you guys. But he had a theory that the reason I was afraid of people in masks was because one time he took me to the circus. And when I was like 3 or 4, and I was like, are they going to come out into the audience? And he was like, no, don't worry, they're not. But the elephants were late, and they did. They came out. The clowns came out into the audience, and apparently that was the traumatizing thing. But I don't know. I really don't know if the clowns coming out is what changed my life. But I was always afraid. So I didn't go to school on Halloween. I was just like really, it terrified me to my core. I don't really know how I like coped throughout my life. Like in kindergarten, the 5th graders put on the school play. They put on The Wizard of Oz. And I was really scared. The funny thing is I wasn't scared of the Wicked Witch of the West's green face paint because I was colorblind and didn't even realize how scary it was. I was actually afraid of the Tin Man's silver face paint. And I was so scared I had to wait, and I waited in the hallway with the security guard during the play because I wouldn't see it. My kindergarten teacher gave me timeout because they saw our play and I didn't watch theirs. I will remember that forever. Anyway, the day that I got over my fear of people in masks, my fear of people wearing face paint, was Thanksgiving, when my family still pretended to love each other. We used to go to this like little town. It feels like a place that isn't even real because it was so long ago. I have no idea where it was, but it was like one of those towns where like they pretended it was like a little Thanksgiving paradise universe, and people dressed up as like pilgrims and turkeys, and they had a restaurant there. So I would go with my family, and there was a guy, and one of the guys dressed as a turkey was wearing a sweatshirt, and the hood of his sweatshirt was sticking out between the head of the turkey and the rest of the turkey costume. And when I saw the hood of the sweatshirt, like something clicked in me that changed my life forever. I was like, oh my God, he's just a guy in there. He's got a sweatshirt on. I so vividly remember his gray sweatshirt, and I just like wasn't afraid of people in masks again. Sometimes I like wonder if I just have tattoos as like this weird like rebellion against the fear I had as a kid of all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I like Thanksgiving, although I'm not eating meat right now, and origins of Thanksgiving are a little fishy. More excited for the festivities of Christmas, such as my birthday. So I think we're doing good. I think we're going to pull a tarot card. We're really going to test the waters of the energy of the room. Okay. This deck is so important to me. It's the Wild Unknown Tarot deck. I collect tarot decks. I have maybe 50 of them. And this is the first deck I ever had. At first, I was like pulling cards from a bunch of different decks, and I think that was a mistake because I wasn't able to learn the cards that way. When you're learning, if you pull from the same deck, then you're able to recognize the cards. You can recognize the imagery. You can start to form a relationship. You can start to put energy into it. You can start to like really understand the cards and like have a relationship with the deck. While it's fun to like play around with different decks, then you're not A, forming a relationship the same way, and B, it's harder to just like recognize the imagery like and understand what those cards are. Like I'm a very visual person, so that's kind of how I remember Oh, I pulled that card. I know what that means. So first of all, I think the biggest thing with tarot and the way that people are like, ugh, that's a bunch of hocus pocus. I hate that. That's like the biggest thing that people don't like about it is that they think that, oh, I'm claiming that I can read the future or I'm claiming that I could read the past. I'm definitely not. I think the biggest way that tarot has helped me is that it has served as a tool for self-reflection. It always helps me like look inward and say like, what am I not acknowledging in my life? What am I not being grateful for in my life? You know, what's a new perspective that I can have on the people around me, the things around me. And I really wish people were more open-minded about that instead of like giving into the stigmatization of tarot. I grew up with really atheist parents, and that like really freaked me out as a kid because, you know, there's like that big question. It's like, what happens after you die? And my parents were just like, I don't know. And that like scared me so much. I was like, what? You're not going to tell me what happens after you die? They're like, well, we don't know. How can we tell you? So when I was in high school, I started like the philosophy club. That didn't help at all. I still couldn't figure it out. And I think like my journey to tarot and astrology kind of came from not really growing up with religion and not really feeling welcomed by religion. I used to really want to like find a religion that would welcome me and make me feel like I could be part of that community, because I think it's not only just that mystery that I feel like really made me feel like lost, but also that lack of community, that lack of like feeling a greater sense of family and ritual that extends outside of your blood. So like, I don't think people even realize, they're like, I don't want to go to church, I don't want to go to temple, but even that communal not wanting to go somewhere is actually something that like you can long for. So I think I kind of found tarot and astrology on my own out of like my own spiritual practice. So that's why I like it. All right. So just to clarify, I in no means think that I'm like, you know, telling the future or the present or the past, but I do truly believe in energy. Like, I think there are a lot of times where I've tried to deny it and been like, no, I don't think that's real. I don't think that I've tried to like play devil's advocate and think that like energies don't exist or that the energy you put out doesn't mean anything. But after, you know, experimenting with being alive, I think energy truly does mean something. And energy you put out there does manifest in different ways, and it is really important. And once you really believe that the energy you put out there does manifest into the universe, does affect other people, is something that is tangible and can be felt when you say hi to someone or when you interact with someone or when someone's in the same room as you, then maybe you can start to understand that maybe you could put energy into tarot cards too. Great. I think we're all coming along on the tarot journey. So this deck, the Wild Unknown Tarot, I was first introduced to this deck through my roommate when I lived in Ridgewood, Queens / Brooklyn. It's kind of on the border. My roommate, Kelsey, she had a tarot deck. We were both working at Variety Coffee Shop. And you know, it's so funny. I was working at Variety, and it was my life when I was working there. I kind of gave up on, I always wanted to be an actor. That was like my dream. But I kind of gave up on my abilities because I went to acting school and they were kind of like, you suck. So I just got a job at a coffee shop and I got a bunch of tattoos too. I was like, I suck. I'll never be an actor. Might as well just get a bunch of tattoos and be really fucking good at making specialty coffee. Got a job at this coffee shop, worked my way up, became the manager, was really proud of it. This is such a side note, but what's really funny is I worked there and I only ever fired one person. I hired a bunch of people, but I only ever fired one person. He was great, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And I saw him last night, which was so funny. I couldn't believe it. Like, he walked into the stand. I was like, I couldn't even believe it. I was so happy to see him, and he was doing great. And I was just like, wow. So funny. Anyway, he was like, you cried when you fired me. I was like, in my head, I'm like, I don't remember crying, but I was really sad. So maybe. Anyway, Kelsey had this tarot deck. And I really liked it. So that's the one that I ordered, which is cool. That makes me think I've had this for like maybe 6 years, 5 years. And so this is the first deck I got to know. I really like it. I love the book that it comes with. I love the imagery on the cards. So it's the Wild Unknown Tarot by Kim Krans. You know, it says on the inside of the box, it says, welcome to the Wild Unknown Tarot. You'll find no wrongs or rights inside this box, only mirrors for reflection. Open your mind, draw a card, and have fun on your journey. And then it has an infinity sign. And then, wait, I feel like there's something else in here, or I might be thinking of another deck. Yeah, it says, may you always be on the inner quest. So, okay, we can talk a little bit about reading tarot. And listen, obviously, I'm not an expert here, right? But when you're talking about astrology and when you're talking about tarot, you're kind of dealing with the 4 elements. You're dealing with water, fire, air, and earth. Yes, we got it. Okay, so different decks. The other thing why it's important to be consistent with the deck that you're learning on is because different decks will use different symbols for each element, right? So the way every tarot deck is exactly the same. It should be 76 cards, and it should have the minor arcana and the major arcana. So the minor arcana is going to be the cards that have the elements on them, right? So let me make sure that I can get this right. So for this deck, the pentacles symbolize material things, which is fuck. All right, we got this, Natalie. We're really learning. All right, let's just use the book. Okay. We're all going to learn together. I'm really trying here, guys. Okay. It's earth. I just can't. I don't know if it's earth or fire. It is earth. Great. It's worldly possessions. So that's what pentacles are. So whenever you see like the pentacle sign, when you're pulling cards, you're like, all right, this is going to have to do with money. This is going to have to do with material wealth, either good or bad. Then there's the cups, right here. So that's water. That's going to have to do with emotions, love, all of that stuff. Then the 2 that I get confused are the swords and the wands because they kind of look the same. So, yeah. So the swords are fire. And the sword, oh, no, they're not. Okay. The swords are air. My bad. So we'll repeat this after. The swords are air, and they're like the suit of action. And then the wands are fire, and that's inspiration and creativity. Okay, so we'll break down the 4 elements of what they mean in the tarot. Pentacles, material goods, earth, right? Earth is like where you find the earthly material goods. Swords, action, which is air, right? Cups, that's the easiest for me to remember for some reason, which is like water, emotion. I think of water and emotion because like emotion flows like water. And then wands, which is fire, inspiration, and creativity. Beautiful. So we have those cards. And in the minor arcana, you have each of those suits, 1 through 10. And then you have it depends how they're going to break it down. But with this deck, you're going to have the sun, the daughter, the father, and the mother of each of them. And usually the son, the daughter, the father, and the mother, they're going to represent like a certain person in your life, or they're going to represent you. So that's kind of how I would break down like the minor arcana of the tarot. Then you have the major arcana, which is the hero's journey. So what that means is the major arcana are kind of like the more powerful cards. They represent like individual archetypes of people. So the major arcana, it starts with like the Fool. The Fool is the naive, hero, right? Just starting on his journey. He knows nothing, kind of like he's just taking foot on his journey and like he's about to go and explore the worlds. And then it kind of goes through all of the different archetypes of the tarot until the end of the tarot. So that's kind of how I would break down understanding a tarot deck from my naive perspective. Great. Maybe that was helpful to someone. All right. So with that being said, all right. What did we learn? Fire, wands, cups, water, pentacles, earth, swords, air. Great. One of the most common ways to read tarot. So most of the seasons of my podcast, I've done this weird thing where I'm like, let's pull a card for the episode and feel the energy of the room. And that really confuses people. But something that people will do when they're trying to learn a deck is they'll pull a card a day just to be like, I'm going to pull this card today, see what the energy of my day is. And then I'm also going to just understand this one card. But a lot of the common ways that people will read they'll do a past, present, future spread. So that's what I started to do in my past few episodes. So we're going to do that right now. And I was so annoyed because the last time I was streaming, I was pulling a card for myself and someone was like, man, you can't read for yourself. I was like, yes, I can. But I can read for myself. So no, I believe you can do anything. I do believe you can read for yourself. I don't know why I let those little voices get in my head of one random person that I just imagine it's one little fat fuck in the middle of America who knows nothing. And that's the voice that's in my head instead of the 10 people that were great reading, Natalie. Thank you. Okay. So I think the part that throws people off the most on my podcast, I'm like, will you shuffle the deck? And they're like, oh, how do I shuffle this? And it's I don't just put energy in. I don't know, just touch it. I don't know. When I had Julia on, my friend, who I feel is very familiar with tarot, the way she shuffles it is it's crazy. And I feel I like that. It's cards are falling everywhere. And sometimes I feel people will do that. But this also, I feel someone could be watching this that knows a lot about tarot and is this is all wrong. But this is just, I don't know if you can be wrong in this. It's just whatever helps you. So, okay. We're going to shuffle the deck. Put some energy in it for today. Today's first ever solo episode of Help with Natalie Cuomo. And you know what else I like to think about? People are kind of confused. They're like, why is she giving help? And it's no. You know how this name of my podcast came about is because, I don't really need to get into that. But the point of my podcast is asking other people for help and also asking tarot cards for help, right? Asking them for guidance. So, all right, we're going to do a little past, present, future spread. See what we can do. On my stream sometimes I will just pull 3 cards and kind of link them all together and see what they're all trying to tell me. But we'll do a past, present, future thing and see how we feel. Okay. I get so nervous sometimes when I'm shuffling just because I'm oh, when you shuffle, that's where you're leaving the cards off. But also, I feel the deck can sense your nervous energy. All right. All right. Wow. Oh my. Ugh, I keep pulling this stupid card. I'm honestly not thrilled here. I'm not thrilled, okay? The past, I've got a lot of cashola, all right? 9 of Pentacles, without even looking at the book, right? I know that there is money to be had. A lot of money. To my past, which is just upsetting. Oh, that's just frustrating me. I mean, this is the 9 of Pentacles. It's going to be about material wealth. I feel the 9s and the 10s are usually quite nice. Quite welcomed cards. The 1s, the 2s, not the 2s always, to be quite honest. Okay. Always a welcome card. The 9 of Pentacles is a time to enjoy the many results of your loyalty and hard work. This may be a promotion at work or newfound stability and happiness at home. It's even possible you'll find yourself enjoying the finer things in life, as luxury and refinement of oftentimes accompany this card. So yeah, this makes sense. You know, this year I finally moved out of my mom's basement, which I really thought would never happen. Moved into a nice apartment with my fiance. Definitely can see how this is like a past card. Obviously, you take one look at this card and you're like, well, that's scary. It's my present card. Guess 9s aren't always the most welcome. This is the 9 of Swords. So I guess if we're trying to figure it out just by looking at it, we know 9 swords are air, action. It's a bunch of swords stabbing some eyeballs and some intestines. And there's like maggots. And quite frankly, it just looks fucking awful. So I also read in the beginning of the book recently that if it's dominated by swords, what does that mean again? Situation of turmoil and distress. Great. Okay. Well, let's see what the 9 of Swords has to say to us. Really great reading today. Dark visions and anguish. An extremely dark card, the 9 of Swords reveals the deepest shadows of the self. It indicates insomnia, nightmares, worries in the midnight hours. Often, these states are accompanied by guilt, despair, or even depression. You'll be battling with yourself, so turn to others for help. Find joy. Reach out. So, guys, help. I don't know. I mean, the deepest shadows of the self. I don't know. I don't really want to break this one down. So I guess, I don't know what to say here. This is a dark card. Whatever. Do with that what you will. This card I pulled, no, I pulled this for a friend. So I didn't do it on the podcast, and I pulled it on my stream. And I've been journaling about it. The 2 of Swords. Obviously, it's about action. This is about like a blockage. There's like some sort of decision that needs to be made that's like, you know, kind of blocking you. And I was like journaling about this card. This is like, this I pulled for like my future slot, right? I've been journaling about this card. I was like, what is this blockage in my life that is blocking me from moving forward? From journaling, I was like, okay, maybe this blockage is that I need to go to therapy, because I feel like I have this podcast where I interview people and they tell me how amazing therapy is. And I feel kind of like a hypocrite because I tell people to go to therapy. I listen to people tell me how amazing their therapists are. And I'm not really getting that help. And then I'll like look up therapists, and it really isn't as easy as like finding a therapist. Like, it's $250 an hour minimum, which I can't afford. And I totally understand why someone's like, ugh, it's not worth it to talk to someone for an hour for $250 once. And, you know, I'm going to change my insurance at the end of the year, so I can't look now. And it's just, you know, there's like a flood of names and random pictures of people. It really is very difficult to find a therapist, and you get referrals that you don't trust, and everyone's bragging about their fucking therapist, and you're like, all right, well, go fuck yourself. You're like, maybe I can do this on my own. I mean, I did finish an entire moleskin of journaling in 1 month, but no, you do need another voice that's kind of gonna help you. Sometimes I'm almost worried I'll go to therapy and realize how much I needed it and how much it could have helped me. But I am going to read this this card out loud. Blocked vision, stalemate. The Two of Swords depicts two opposing forces that have reached a stalemate. You cannot progress forward with either a relationship or a life decision. There's an answer that's being blocked, maybe by choice. Many times this card will indicate you do not wish to face the truth the light will reveal. So I know it doesn't even seem like that, like the two opposing forces. I've been thinking about this because like now this card has come up for me 3 times in like 2 weeks. And like the opposing forces for me are like way more internal. They're like self-love and self-hate, really. Because like there's a part of me that feels like, wow, I'm doing really well in my career. And there's another part of me that's like, well, I wish I had this thing. I wish I had that thing. And there's also the self-criticism or the criticism of others that seeps into my head. So I almost feel like the two opposing forces are like me and myself. And they're kind of like blocking me from being able to like fully just like be who I want to be and like be comfortable in my skin. And I feel like that has to be relatable to some people. And it's almost like, how do you like it feels like there's like a dam. Like it feels like I'm like, this is so cheesy, but it feels like a river that has like a dam and I need to like break the dam down because it just really, it does feel like a blockage. My self-consciousness and my feeling of like not being accepted or my fear of not being accepted feels like such a blockage into expressing myself and like kind of, you know, a lot of things really. But I don't know. Is therapy the answer? Maybe it's not a therapy. I don't know. But it is something to think about. Or maybe it's just a fucking card. Maybe it's just a card. And maybe this card is sticky. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? Maybe this card's sticky. You know, maybe someone jizzed on it. It's kind of a dark reading, honestly. It's upsetting when I'm like, ugh. You know, swords are mostly darkness and turmoil. But I look at this and it's like pretty accurate for my life. I mean, I have a really happy and healthy home life. But like internally, I'm filled with like a lot of self-hate and anxiety that shouldn't be there. Like I've accomplished a lot and should be pretty proud of myself. But it's really hard for me to get there and I definitely need to work on it. So it's not wrong. I hate when people say stuff like, oh, well, if you read any, I know this is not horoscopes and astrology, but I hate when people are like, well, if you read any horoscope, it would apply to you. It's like, well, not really. And also the point isn't that. The point isn't about horoscopes or tarot cards being right. The point is like, what can you gain from it? Like, can you use it as a tool? And that's like, you know, that's what I want to take away from it. This card really scares me. But also, does it make you feel seen? Like, do you pull a card and you're like, oh my God, I kind of feel seen by this. Like, you know what? I do feel like this on the inside sometimes. And this makes me feel validated. It makes me feel seen. It makes me feel like, okay, maybe I'm not totally crazy. Sometimes I do kind of feel like a bunch of eyeballs and organs and maggots that are being stabbed by 9 swords. Even though I have a really happy, amazing home life. But, you know, my mental state is kind of like this. And it's like being blocked for some reason. So, yeah. That's a little tarot reading. It's a little solo episode of my podcast. You know, I always ask guests like the best advice they ever received. I've asked a lot of people this. At first, I would say like, oh my God, the best advice I ever received, that's easy. It's to not take anyone's motherfucking advice. But that I agree with for sure. Always consider people's advice before you take it. But I don't know. That's really good advice, honestly. Don't like blindly listen to people. Okay, if someone asked me to come on their podcast and tell them the best advice I ever received, it would probably be to never take anyone's advice, or to always consider it, because yeah, I think that people could be so wrong. But I'm trying to think of better situation. You know what? This kind of ties in. It's not really advice, but I remember when I was a kid and I was just like home with my dad, and there was like a fire down the block, like a big fire. This house was on fire. We heard all these fire trucks, and we left our apartment to go down the block and like look at the house burn. And I was like kind of freaked out about it. And we walked back to my house, my apartment, and I was like sitting on my dad's lap, and I was like, do heaven and hell exist? And he was like, only on earth. But I felt like that was solid. That was solid advice, because all of our ideas of heaven and hell are coming from earth, and we have like the power to make it more of a place that's like heaven. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna make a fourth wall, which is kind of like Patreon, and I was thinking it'd be cool to like do tarot readings for people that wanted them. Not that I'm like good at them or anything, but it'd be fun to try. But, you know, I need to, like, know things about you. But maybe it's dumb. But I can make, like, a questionnaire or something. But maybe it's a dumb idea. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let's see. Is there anything else? I think another piece of advice that's really important that I could try to take myself would just be to not take things so seriously. I take everything way too seriously. It's so hard not to take everything so seriously. So I'd say that would be another piece of advice. Not to take things so seriously. And also, if you're getting tattoos, probably maybe do your legs first, because, yeah, I don't know. And probably don't eat animals because they're nice. And dogs are good. And yeah, I think that's good. So guys, I feel like that was a really good first solo episode of my podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. It'd mean the world if you let me know what you thought. And like, comment, subscribe. I love you guys so much. And I'll see you next week. Bye.